I get it. You're in a lot of pain right now. But listen to me. I'm going to need you to take care of yourself because life goes on. You are not going to be hurt forever. You are not going to be broken forever. And you are not going to be struggling forever. One day you are going to love again. One day you are going to be happy again. One day you are going to move forward. And during this process, I'm going to need you to love on you. I'm going to need you to care about you so much so that you can feel it in your heart. You can hear it in your words. And even though you may not know what the next course of your life may look like, even though you may not know what the next step it may look like, I want you to have so much trust in you that you can understand, even through the storm, even when you cannot see the light, that one day everything will be okay. So in this video, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about learning to love yourself. I want to talk about building a relationship with yourself and ultimately learning how to have self love. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is struggling with self love. So many of us feel like we struggle with self love. I struggle to care about myself. I struggle to love myself. But what you really don't understand is that you are struggling with your ego. Now, I know when people hear the word ego, you're like, I'm not arrogant. I don't have an ego. I'm not that kind of girl. I'm not that kind of person. I want you to understand you do have an ego. We all have an ego, and your ego is not just about arrogance. The ego is basically the version of yourself that your brain builds to help you survive. It's the part of your brain that says, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I do. And this is what people think about me. Now, the good thing about this is that it does give you a sense of control. It gives you a better understanding of what am I going to do before you actually do it. So, for example, hey, you probably shouldn't go into that concert because people like you don't go there. Hey, you probably shouldn't, put on this outfit because you're not the kind of girl that wears that kind of stuff. So the whole point of the ego is to give you a sense of control, to kind of give you the mindset around what should I do or what shouldn't I do. The problem that you also don't realize is this same mindset that gives you a sense of control about what you should or you shouldn't do based upon who you are is also the same mindset that is going to eventually hold you back. And this is because the ego does not care about growth, it cares about stability. So, the problem that this causes is when you try to grow yourself, when you try to ultimately change yourself and do things differently, your brain literally resists it because your ego is saying, hey, this thing might come with us requiring a little bit of fear. Hey, this thing might come with a little bit of embarrassment. Hey, this might come with a little bit of change from what we're already used to. So, it literally tells your brain, we're not doing this thing, and it literally makes your brain feels like it's in pain so that you will ultimately resist changing anything about your life. And so I wanted to explain this because I don't want you to think that you don't love yourself. I don't want you to think that you dislike yourself. And for some people, I don't even want you to think that you hate yourself because I know that's a feeling that you can feel when you're going through pain, when you're going through hurt, and you're like, why can't I change? I know I'm in pain. I know I'm hurt, but why can't I stay consistent? Why can't I stay disciplined? Why can't I do the things that I know will literally change my life? So now I want to break it down to you in three phases so you ultimately can learn how to truly love yourself. I want you to understand after the video is done, how to essentially work with your ego so that you can build a better sense of self-love and so you can actually learn how to be consistent, how to show up for yourself, how to be disciplined, and ultimately how to love yourself through it all with understanding everything will be okay. Now, let's get into phase one. Self-love is not a performance, it's a process. I want you to understand your ego is going to make you feel like you have to perform because your ego is going to tell you that you need to get something out of everything that you do. And so for you, self love is going to look like a form of discipline. It's going to look like showing up and getting something out of it. Self love is not going to look like anything that does not provide something after. Self love is not going to look like anything that is not going to give you a title, that is not going to give you a better status, that is not going to make you more money. That is not self love because if we are trying to be a part of a certain identity, if we're trying to be seen as a certain kind of person, then self-love has to be us drinking the green juice, right? I know we don't want to do it, but this discipline, everybody on social media makes it seem like self-love is directly discipline. And to a certain extent, I see what they're saying, but I think the problem is we fall way too much to the wayside until we literally think that in order to show self-love to ourselves, we have to do things that are essentially hard. And we have to do things that are hard because why? There's a benefit out of it. When you are drinking that green juice and it's disgusting, why are you doing that? Because you're telling yourself, I'm going to have a great body. When you're waking up early in the morning, why are you doing this? Because you're telling yourself, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to feel great. And then I'm going to post that bikini picture. There's this correlation between self love and performance. And so we kind of dismiss things to the wayside that we're not able to show. We dismiss things to the wayside that ultimately aren't performative. They might feel good to a certain extent, but if this thing isn't going to help us get that degree, make more money, get a better job, get a better house, then that's not self love. And so I want you to understand your ego is constantly telling you that in your ear. When you are not able to benefit from something, your ego is going to tell you, hey, because it's starting to feel a little bit of what? A little bit of fear. It's starting to feel a little bit of rejection. So it's going to tell you to stop doing that thing. For example, you need a job. What is the difference between you applying to 100 jobs and one job? Your ego. The first job you apply to, you're gonna say, I need a job, I need to make money. Second job you apply to, I need a job, I need to make money. By the time you apply to your 15th job, your ego is going to tell you nobody wants to hire you because your resume isn't good enough. Nobody's going to hire you because you are not smart enough. Nobody's going to hire you because blank. Why? Because you're starting to get a little bit of negative emotions, right? And as I said before, your ego does not like negative emotions. It doesn't like that they're feeling rejection because nobody's accepting you. It doesn't like the fear of it possibly thinking, okay, how long is it going to take? It doesn't like this confusion. It likes stability. It likes knowing. So even if that means keeping you broke, your ego will convince you that you don't need to do anything differently from what you're doing now, i.e., you don't need to change. And so there's no difference in action from applying to a job your first time versus your 100th time. You're getting your resume, you're making a cover letter. The action itself is not changing. What is changing? Your ego is changing because your ego is telling you that you are not good enough, that you shouldn't be doing this thing. And so there becomes this thing of your ego feeling like its performance is not going to get a reward. When that performance, that's like putting on an entire play and nobody watching it and nobody applauding you after. And so your ego starts getting a little bit of insecurity. I don't think after completing this action, we're going to get applause. What does an applause look like? We're going to get an acceptance. I don't think after doing, this one workout, we're going to see any results of the gym. So nobody's going to say our body looks good. So your ego literally convinces you not to do things that may give you progress if it feels like this will not lead to some kind of uplifting, essentially some kind of reward with performance. And that ultimately is a lot of times why you don't progress in life. So many people are like, oh my gosh, I want to stay consistent and I'm struggling to stay consistent and I don't know why. It's because I don't love myself. No, it is not because you don't love yourself necessarily. It is because your ego is so used to putting on a performance that any action that does not seem performative to it, it does not want you to do. And so I want to give you guys a case study that was done. This was actually made very popular in the book Atomic Habits by the author James Clear. I definitely recommend that book. And I want to talk to you guys about the problem that comes when you practice too much of performative self love and you actually don't know how to practice real self love through progress. For nearly 100 years, British cyclists were notoriously underperforming. No Olympic golds nor Tour de France wins. Then, in 2003, they hired Dave Blazeford, who introduced a new philosophy. Don't focus on winning medals, focus on improving tiny habits, just by 1%. They didn't obsess over outcomes. Instead, they adjusted bike seats for better posture, used better hand washing techniques to avoid illness, optimized sleeping with personal pillows, refined nutrition, warm up routines, and even massage gel formulas. They detached from the we need to win and focus on daily action based improvements. The results? 5 years later, in 2008, the Beijing Olympics, they won 8 gold medals. In 2012, the London Olympics, they won another 8 gold medals. Between 2012 and 2018, they won 5 Tour de France wins. Why did I say that story? Because I want you to stop attaching your self worth to the outcomes. I want you to be so focused on your progress, so focused on your doing, and get rid of that performance mindset. Stop feeling like you do not love yourself because you are not performing. There are so many people that are going through life right now. You're going through it. And the reason why it hurts so much more, the reason why that cuts so much more deep is because while every single day, all you're trying to do is survive, you're telling yourself you don't love yourself. You're telling yourself, see, I don't love myself enough to wake up early. I don't love myself enough to get my body together. I don't love myself enough to do all these things. But then you never ask yourself, why? Why are you so focused right now in this point in your life of getting your body together? Why? Why are you so focused right now in this point in your life of making more money? Why are you so focused on these outcomes? Every single day you wake up, you don't make your bed. You leave dishes in the sink for days. You do not clean your car until somebody comes in your car. That's self love. You're so focused on the performative things. Those cyclists for 100 years did not do anything when it came to the Tour de France. How were they able to do it in such a short amount of time when all of these medals? Why? Because they stopped focusing on outcomes. It's going to come to you. I promise you it's going to come to you. I promise you one day everything is going to be okay. But if day in and day out, you're so focused on the outcome, your ego is going to deplete. Your ego is going to tell you we're not the kind of people that do this. And you know what your ego has? It has a track record. It has time and time again when you tried to go to the gym and you didn't lose the weight. Time and time again when you tried to start that business and it wasn't able to go. Time and time again when you were in school. Why are you trying to go to college? We ain't going to college. Remember we was in high school when we struggled? Remember when we first tried to go to college and we struggled? Your ego wants stability. It wants things to stay the same. And so you're struggling day in and day out to feel like, why can't I love myself? Why can't I? You really are asking yourself, why can't I perform? Because you're not meant to be a performer. You're meant to be you. And self love looks like progress. Self love looks like doing the things just because they're supposed to be done, just because you know they're the right thing to do. And so many of us are so connected to this idea of I have to only focus my energy on things that are going to create big change. But you don't realize how much more clear your mind is when you wake up in a clean room, how much so clear your thoughts are when you're driving in a clean car. Those are the things that show self-love. How much clearer you feel when your clothes are clean. All these things that you don't worry about because they're not performative, because you don't see the things that they necessarily bring you back, are the things that are necessary, are the literally stepping ground for you to start showing that you love yourself, because those are signs of progress. Not getting the award, not people telling you congratulations, not people telling you body tea. That's not progress. It's the things that you do that nobody sees that are progress and that are self love. And so I want you to understand the ego wants applause. The ego wants people to say, congratulations, amazing. Love, self love just wants consistency. It just wants you to show up. And time again, you don't, because you feel like you don't have nothing to show for it, or you feel like you don't have enough to show for it. But I want you to think about it like this. Imagine a toddler that you know, a 4 or 5 year old. It could be your niece, nephew, child, anybody. Or just think of a random 4 to 5 year old. Imagine taking them to the beach. They're having a time. They're having so much fun. They're building a sandcastle. And they're like, look, this is the sandcastle I want to build, right? And they're building a sandcastle, looking at a little iPad tablet, trying to build it out. Imagine after building that sandcastle for 1 to 2 hours, it looks nothing like the one on their little tablet. Imagine kicking that sandcastle down and telling that child, that's it don't even look like the one on the picture. That's not, no, I know you put in all them hours. I know you put in all that time, but this is not how it's supposed to be. That's exactly what you do to yourself when you do things based upon outcome. You forget all the times that you went to the gym. You so focused on the outcome of going to the gym, you forgot. Yes, you've been on this gym journey off and on for 2 years, but those times when you actually showed up, that was self-love. You think self-love was when you finally stepped on the scale, when you lost weight. No, self-love is when you woke up and you went, simply because you wanted to go, or you went moved yourself to go. Self-love is you starting that business and it didn't work out and you starting another business. Self-love is not you making your first sale or telling people that you're a business owner. because all you're doing is telling that little kid that sandcastle is not enough. You've put in so much work to this point. That was all self-love. Do not allow your ego to tell you that that was not enough, and do not allow your ego not to allow you to acknowledge all the work that you put in and all the things that you've done to get to this point. I don't care if you've been able to reap the benefit or reward from it. Those are all signs of self-love. When you did things for progress, when you did things in consistency, and not just for applause and not just for spectators to tell you that they're proud of you and they love you. Now we are going to go into phase two. So phase two is titled Let Yourself Feel and Let People In. Now, the first part of this is letting yourself feel. And this is the first one I want to talk about. I think this is important because I want you to understand there is nothing that is a bad emotion or a good emotion. There are just emotions. When we are younger, we are kind of taught what are bad emotions. This is anger, this is frustration, things like that. And then what are good emotions? This is happiness, this is joy, this is celebration. And so we are kind of taught that we only should display good emotions. We only should allow good emotions to fester. And we should only really acknowledge good emotions. When it comes to the anger, when it comes to the sadness, we should not allow ourselves to essentially experience those things, to the point where many of us are even taught to hide these things, whether it's to people or even to ourselves. Over time, you don't first and foremost realize that this causes you to stay stagnant in life, because whether you realize it or not, these bad emotions that we categorize are actually motivators. You are not going to leave a good job. You are not going to leave a good man. You are not going to leave a good situation. What are you going to leave? A bad job, a bad man, a bad situation. And so, us suppressing these emotions literally causes us not to change our life, because we are not allowing ourselves to feel these things that are considered to be quote unquote bad emotions. We are forcing ourselves to essentially disassociate. We are forcing ourselves to put on a smile. Sometimes too, we think that that's a sign of strength. Oh, no matter what I'm going through, I can always, keep it going. I can always keep a smile on my face. I can always what? I can always what? You can always fake it to yourself. Okay, really what you're doing is bottling up these emotions. Whether you realize it or not, your body is still experiencing them. And so you don't understand the impact that it has over time at your body and your mind. And so first and foremost, this causes you not to change because you're not motivated. But I want to give you guys a case study that actually shows how this can literally change the trajectory of your life and how you do things in life based on the fact that you are constantly suppressing your negative emotions. Scientists at Stanford ran a study on 17 women to see two ways people deal with emotions. The first one, reprisal, which is where you feel the emotion but you mentally reframe it. Like telling yourself, this isn't the end of the world, or this situation doesn't define me. The second way, suppression, where you try to shut down the emotion completely and pretend you're not feeling anything. They put people in MRI machines and showed them emotional videos. Some were told to reprise, and others were told to suppress their emotions. Here's what they found. The people who reprised basically allowed themselves to feel the emotion but shifted how they looked at it. They showed lower stress in their brains, specifically less activity in the amygdala, which controls your fear and your anxiety. People who suppress their emotions, tried to hide them and keep a straight face, showed even more brain activity in the stress zones and higher physical stress with things such as heartbeats and sweating. So, what does this mean? When you bottle up your emotions, your body still feels them, just harder and for longer. Your stress goes up, your memory gets worse, and you start feeling emotionally exhausted without even knowing why. But when you acknowledge and feel your emotions, even the uncomfortable ones, and learn to work with them instead of against them, you calm your nervous system, you get clarity instead of confusion, and you bounce back faster. And so I wanted to give this study to show you guys how it's not just an emotional thing. A lot of times we think emotions just stay as emotion. As long as I learn how to control my emotions, I can necessarily control my life. But you've seen with that study, this affects you on so many different ways. This makes you exhausted. This affects your memory. And so there is a thing of you feeling like I just can't do it. I'm struggling to change my life. I'm struggling to do all these things. And it's because you are not allowing yourself really to live life wholly. You are only allowing yourself to live certain aspects of your life, certain aspects a lot of time that the ego wants and the ego feels good about. And so I say all that to say you need to find ways to essentially detach yourself from certain situations and allow yourself to feel that thing, but essentially reframe it in a way. When I'm going through something, I literally say to myself, Shamaya is angry. Shamaya is sad. Why is Shamaya angry? Why is Shamaya sad? Because a lot of times I don't want this thing to define me. I don't want this thing to make it to a thing of I'm angry, I'm sad, because I'm an angry person. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to act out these quote unquote bad emotions. I'm going to act like an angry person. I'm sad. I'm going to act like a sad person. And all this going to do is keep me stuck and stagnant. So I want you to start disconnecting yourself from your emotions as far as thinking that they have to be the definition of who you are, but understand you still can feel them. I still feel anger. I sometimes need a fire under my butt to tell me, you know what, Shemaya, you need to get back in that mode. You need to do what you have to do. I feel sadness. But I allow myself to feel those things, and I try my best as I can not to do things that will suppress that emotion and shorten that emotion. Because as you've seen here, they said it doesn't really shorten it just in that specific moment. You actually hold on to those emotions longer, contrary to a person that can sit with the emotions and allow them to essentially cycle through. Now, the next part of this I did say is let people in. A lot of times we think self-love is being hyper independent. I could do all bad by myself. I could do everything by myself. And that really shows that I love myself because I could do it myself. But I want you to understand your hyper independence has a undertone of a lack of self-love and a lack of self-trust. See, the reason why you do everything by yourself is not because you want to. It is because you feel like you need to. It is because you feel like you have to. You are afraid of people dropping the ball on you. You are afraid of people disrespecting your trust. You are afraid of what will essentially happen to you if the individuals who you ask to show up for you, who you depend to show up for you, don't show up for you. And so you convince yourself, I can do everything with myself and I'm independent and I love myself so much not to do all these things. But the real truth behind it is that you're hurting. The real truth behind it is that you're tired. The real truth behind it is that you're scared. You're scared of the person, of the woman that you may become after that person loses your trust, after you depend on that person and they don't show up for you. You're afraid of becoming angry. You're afraid of becoming bitter. You're afraid of what's going to happen after. You're afraid that you don't have enough in you to still be able to thrive after. But I want you to understand there's a 50-50 chance. I'm going to be completely honest with you. You can put your trust in somebody and they can completely do away with it. And they can completely make you never want to trust that person again. And they can hurt you ultimately, because that's what you're really running from, hurt. They can hurt you. But you also can put your trust in somebody and they can uplift you and they can make you feel like the greatest thing in the world. But the only difference between making either action is the trust that you have in yourself. So many times we think it's others. We want to talk about other people, or other people be like this and other people be like that. No, it's you. Because I can honestly say, first and foremost, I do try to keep people in my life that I feel like are, upstanding citizens. But I also understand people are people. I can only show up being me. I can only show up so much as myself and understand no matter what somebody does to me, no matter what somebody says to me, I got Shemaya after. And that's why I can trust people. And that's why I can let people in. And that's why I can get to bigger heights in life. I want you to understand you need help. You need people. This idea that you could do everything by yourself is not sustainable in the long run. It's not sustainable for life. I want you to think about this. And I think I've mentioned this on a previous video before. So you may remember if you watch my videos. But in the gym, you ever see people like doing like weights, especially when they do like the squats in the gym, right? And they're doing like a really, really heavy weight. You ever see how they have the person behind them? That person is called a spotter. Why do they have a spotter behind them? Because they are doing a weight that is so heavy that they may not be able to lift themselves up. Okay. But why are they even doing that weight? Because people who are very familiar with the gym, very familiar with building muscle, understand that you do not gain muscle the first 1 or 2 reps. You gain muscle the last 5 to 6 reps. That rep that literally hurts you, that rep that it feels like I don't even know if I can get up. That is where your body builds muscle. And so these individuals are able to, i.e., build more muscle because they have somebody behind them, because they have that spotter that subconsciously is telling them, hey, Even if you can't do this thing, I'm here for you. But what does that also allow that person to do? At least try to do that thing. At least know that they have somebody behind them, that if they can't do that thing correctly, I'm still going to have somebody to fall back on. It's still going to be somebody to put me up. So what does that allow that person to do? That allows that person to try for more weights, that allows that person to build bigger muscle, that allows that person to build bigger strength because they have a spotter. Contrary to a person that doesn't have a spotter, they're only going to do weights they know that are comfortable for them. They're only going to do weights that they know they can do. Why? Because they know, hey, if I can't get up, ain't nobody here to catch me. And so I want you to understand that with life, you have to let people in. You have to find spotters in life, not to help you with the first 1 or 2 reps, because you can do that yourself, but the last 5 to 2 reps in life, that last bit of consistency, you need to find people to help you with that. And that may look like mentors, and that may look like a therapist. To each his own, but you need to find a group of individuals or an individual or something, someone that can be your spotter. And with that, you have to let people in. You have to understand there are some people that may hurt you. There are some people that may, not do you good. But have so much love and trust in yourself that you say, you know what, no matter what happens, I got me. I got me. And moving forward, I ain't gonna mess with this kind of person again. I ain't telling you to keep messing with the same kind of people. But at the same time, too, you understand time after time again, I'm gonna be okay. Because I love myself so much so that I know I can pick up the pieces after. I may not be able to do it in a day. I might not be able to even do it in a week. It might take a month. But at the end of this course, I'm going to be okay. Now, there are some people who are probably listening to that and they're like, but it's hard for me to be vulnerable. It's hard for me to let people in. And I just don't know why. I get what you're saying, but for some reason, I still can't seem to do it. It is probably based upon your insecurities. And I want you to first and foremost understand most insecurities are not based on fact. They're simply based on being filtered by your ego. So it's not even based upon that thing necessarily, whatever you may be insecure about. It's based upon what your ego tells you that thing means. For example, there could be a girl who's like, I'm really skinny. I'm really, really skinny and I just don't like how I look. I'm 5'3" and I'm 110 pounds. And her ego tells her, you look ugly in your clothes. You're so skinny, you look like bones. Nobody likes the skinny girls. They like girls with more meat on them. And so she's very insecure about her weight. So I can say to that girl, okay, if that insecurity is something that you're dealing with, you're something that you're struggling with, what weight would you not be insecure at? And then she would possibly say, well, if I was 130, 135, I wouldn't be as insecure. Okay, so let's look at it as face value. Let's look at it as if insecurities are facts because that is what your brain says, right? Your brain says, I'm this certain weight, so this means that. I'm this certain height, so that means that. I'm this certain skin color, so that means that. Okay, let's take that thing as fact, right? She is skinny, right? She may even call herself anorexic because she is 110 pounds. Now, let's say if there was someone who was 4 feet and they were 110 pounds, would they be skinny? No. Or would they? Yes. We said 110 pounds is skinny. That's a fact. The same girl is probably gonna say, no, but it's for me. I'm skinny because I'm 5'3" and I say all that to say the fact that you have to manipulate it to be like, oh, well, it's this because this and it's this because that shows that it is based upon your ego. It is not something that is factual. And I'm not saying that this should make all your insecurities go away. And I'm not saying that this should make you completely not caring about being vulnerable. But for me, realizing that honestly made a big difference because a lot of my insecurities, honestly, all of my insecurities, I took them as fact. And I also didn't realize my ego told me that those insecurities meant something that honestly I didn't want to mean, if we really want to be completely honest with it. For example, y'all can see here, I have a large forehead. I have a big forehead. For years, I hid my forehead. For years, I was insecure. For years, I wouldn't take pictures or videos for myself because for years, my ego told me, what does it mean to have a big forehead? It means that I'm ugly. It means that nobody is going to find me to be attractive. It means it's even going to be hard for me to find a man. It's going to be hard for individuals to listen to anything that I say because why? I have a big forehead. If I kept that ego process, if I kept that insecurity as a fact, right? Big four-headed girls are ugly. big foreheaded girls can't post on social media. Big foreheaded. If I would have thought about all those things as facts, I would not be at 100,000 followers in less than 2 years. I've been on YouTube since December 2023. I've been on YouTube for what, like 16 months or something like that. I have 100,000 followers. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for that. But second of all, this is why I want you to understand the ego was going to tell me that I couldn't post. My ego was going to tell me things that my big forehead mean. And so I want you to ask yourself about your insecurities. Like I said, detaching yourself sometimes and taking yourself out of yourself, still allowing yourself to feel, but also be able to analyze, what do you think that insecurity means about you? And is that thing a fact? Because it's not a fact. There's so many big foreheaded women who are models. There's so many Rihanna, Tyra Banks, Wendy Williams, honestly. Like, there's a lot of big foreheaded women that have done amazing things. But because it's me, I felt so insecure and I thought that that thing held me back. And it honestly caused me to be less vulnerable. So I wanted to definitely talk about that one because I know a lot of times our insecurities are why we're afraid to put ourselves out there. And so I want to end phase two of saying you don't have to act on every emotion, but you do have to feel every emotion because suppressed emotions don't disappear. They just wait to explode later as anxiety, burnout, and a lot of times regret. Now, I know going off of the last one, some people are going to say, but Shamaya, you don't get it. I am insecure. It's hard for me to love myself because I have insecurities about things that are actually facts. There are some people who think this and think that, but I deal with a fact that's an insecurity. Maybe you have a disability. Maybe based upon where you live, people like you were treated a certain kind of way. You're like, it's facts. There's statistics behind this thing. It's factual. I want you to also understand when it comes to insecurities and about how they shape your life is a lot of time based upon your perception of that insecurity. So that thing can be true. I want to say that first and foremost. With the last part, I wanted to say because a lot of insecurities I realized aren't true. But there also are some insecurities that we have about ourselves that technically are true. But I'm going to give you a study that was done, a case study that shows how your perception of this thing actually changes your life and not necessarily the thing or insecurity itself. This study was done out of University of Michigan's psychology department. So the participants used were male and female undergraduate students who were equally skilled in math based on prior academic performance. During the procedure, students took a difficult math test under two different conditions. So, one group was told the test had shown different gender differences in the past, activating a stereotype threat. This test basically said that men statistically scored higher on this test than women. Group two was told the test had shown no gender differences and they were considered the neutral condition. The results were the women performed worse than the men when the stereotype was activated. Basically, when they were told that statistically speaking, men did better on this test. But when told the test showed no gender bias for the other group, basically they were told no men or women did any better on the test than the other. It's just based upon all academics. Women perform just as well as men. I wanted to use this study because I thought it displayed perfectly how your perception of things, your perception of your insecurity can change something. Starting the test, the men and the women were already taken, they were studied to have similar, essentially, test scores. They were to have similar academic standings. But when the women were told, hey, just to tell you before you take the test, statistically speaking, men usually do better on this test. They're just usually better at it. This caused the women to, without even realizing it, subconsciously do worse on the test. It probably caused them to overthink. It probably caused them to cross off certain answers and put something out because now they're kind of told, hey, I just want to let you know you're behind the line. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. So they literally force themselves to work harder and probably do bad when they should have just showed up being who they were. Contrary to the women that were not told anything, were literally just told, here, take the test. They didn't see any difference. They weren't told there was any difference. They didn't have that insecurity. It was not activated inside of their brain. They did just as well as the men. And so I want you to understand that insecurity technically might be true. There might be something about you that's a disability. There might be something about you that, puts you as far as being different in society standards. But I want you to understand your interpretation of that thing what that thing means for you and means about you is what changes how you show up in life. It changes how you show up when it comes to change. It changes how you show up when it comes to your confidence. And it changes how you love yourself, essentially, because you're not even able to show up as the true you, the person that you love, the person that you care about. You subconsciously show up as the person you think people think you are. You show up for other people. And so that's the big thing I want you to understand when it comes to your insecurities. It's not necessarily, about this thing. It's about your interpretation of this thing. But then also, I'm going to completely acknowledge that other people have egos too, right? Just as well as your ego tells you this thing must mean blank, blank, blank. If I'm 110 pounds, it must mean I'm skinny. It must mean my leggings fit baggy. It must mean I'm this, that. People think I'm unattractive. Okay, other people have egos too, right? So I'm not gonna not acknowledge the fact that other people may feel that way, right? That might be the first thing they think about when they see you. But I also want you to understand this is a perfect opportunity to craft you. See, when it comes to self love, it's loving thyself, it's being there for thyself. And I want you to understand you have to have something else besides your insecurities. You know what's even worse than the girl that thinks she's skinny or thinks she's anorexic? A girl that thinks she's skinny or thinks she's anorexic with no personality. See, a lot of people focus so much on this insecurity. You're trying to do your best to avoid it so people don't think about it, so people don't talk about it, so people don't acknowledge it. But the whole time you don't realize what you're also doing is avoiding yourself. Have something else to back you up. Yes, first time looking at somebody, you might say, hey, this person looks like this person looks like that, but you can be vastly surprised. And actually, people may like you more because they went into it with this thought process of you're like this, you're like this, you're like that. But then you don't blow their mind. Now you're even more intriguing than the person that they first thought was intriguing. But what is it all based upon? Your perception. There's certain things about yourself that you cannot change. And even if there are certain things you can change, right now we have plastic surgery, we have all these things. I want you to understand you're going to become addicted to changing everything about yourself. And I'm not, listen, this is to each its own. If you want to change something on yourself, you want to whatever, whatever. But if you're doing these things thinking this is going to make men like me more, this is going to make me look prettier, this is going to make me look more like my siblings, this is going to make me look more like my mother, I want to be pretty, this is going to make me essentially become someone else, I want you to understand that insecurity is never going to go away. And time after time again, even though you may not have that insecurity face value looking at you, you're still going to act like that person that has that insecurity because first and foremost, you never truly allowed yourself to experience that thing and acknowledge that thing and be okay with it. But then also at the same time, you have nothing else good about you. Okay, yes, you don't have the quote unquote big nose anymore. But what else? What are we going to talk about? Now you don't have the big nose, but you also can't hold a conversation because you never talk to anyone because you assumed everyone noticed your big nose. And so I say all this to say self love is about choosing what your story means, not focusing on what your flaw is. So many of us think that we struggle with self love, but it's really that ego. You're wondering why you can't show up for yourself. You're wondering why you can't be there for yourself. And it's because you need to do some of the things that I listed in this video. You need to find yourself a spotter. You need to acknowledge all of your emotions. You need to first figure out what do these insecurities mean about me. And so many of my videos, I'm trying to get you guys to understand what is the underlying meaning of why it is so hard to change your life. Why is it so hard to go after your dreams? And so many times it's based upon things that we first and foremost don't want to acknowledge, but then also at the same time we don't notice. So when it comes to self-love, we think of it as being ourselves. Self-love is me being disciplined. Self-love is me showing up for myself. And to a certain extent, it is that as well. But to a bigger extent, as I show in this video, it's you really deteriorating that ego. It's you really coming to terms with that ego. And that's really what self love is. It's, in my opinion, about the separation of who thyself is, who I truly am, and who my ego tells me I am, based upon a lot of times flaws and things I can't control. And so you don't need to kill your ego. You just have to stop letting it be in charge of all your actions and your decisions and how you think about yourself and how you actually care about yourself during this process. Because the version of yourself that loves yourself does not need to be perfect. The I'm going to be okay one day, that I'm going to get through this one day, that I'm going to be forward in life one day is not the perfect self. So many of us think that that is going to be perfect and that person is going to have everything going on, that person is going to be disciplined, that person, that person is you. She is you now. Love her now. Care about her now. And detach from that ego and stop letting that ego tell you when and how to love her. Stop letting that ego tell you what self love is. Stop letting that ego tell you what parts of yourself should you love and what parts of yourself should you hide from society. Self love is the part of you that is willing to show up, to feel, and to trust through every part of your life, no matter what you're going through, because we are all going to have peaks. But right now, you might be going through a valley and you still have to love yourself in despite of it and love yourself through it. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. I recently hit 100,000 followers, you guys. I know I mentioned it in the video, but I just want to say I'm so excited. I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed. As I mentioned, this is just the beginning of the journey. So thank you all so much for that. I do upload videos every Sunday and every Wednesday. Make sure you turn on your post notifications so you're notified about that. And I did mention that I'm going to start having lives where you guys email me discreetly any problems that you're going through, anything you need help with, and on live, I answer it and I break it down just so I can have more of a one-on-one interaction with you guys, and also so I can get tackling specific topics you're dealing with. I'm going to have the first one this Wednesday, and I'm going to have it at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So please turn on your post notifications. I am going to post on like that post area that they have on YouTube, constantly reminding you guys about that. I am going to upload a video on Wednesday, and after the video, I am going to notify you guys just to remind you guys about that. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys so much. Of course, don't forget to follow me on TikTok. I know I haven't posted on there in a while. I'm going to start again. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. Also, if you like to listen to the videos instead of just watching them, the podcast versions, definitely, especially because I know sometimes YouTube be like making people unfollow me. I don't know what's going on. So if you're updated with the podcast, it will always remind you. That comes out every Tuesday. So you're like, okay, wait, a video must have been posted. I prefer the video option. Let me go to that. And anything else that's going on, definitely just follow me on all social media platforms at ChamiaTiarra. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you guys so much. This is just the beginning. And if you guys have any, sorry, I'm talking so fast, any specific things that you're going through that you want to comment them below, not the discreet things, which actually below you can go to, I think it's adviceshamaya@gmail.com. It should be in the description box below of the email you can email for your personal problems. But if there's a video topic that you guys want me to talk about, definitely comment that below and I can help you with that. So thank you guys so much and have a great one. And also, might as well, what are some of the things that your ego was telling you? Or what are some of the things that your ego tells you based upon any insecurity that you may have? So if you're comfortable enough with that and you're vulnerable enough with that, I recommend to comment that below, because I want everybody to see that we all have insecurities. We all have things that we're going through. And these things tell us things, and they may not always be true. But since we hold it in, it literally becomes our entire world and our entire outlook on the world. So thank y'all so much and have a great one. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep adding stuff. Also, I have been now implementing like little case studies and stuff like that in my videos. Tell me how y'all like that, because I think that might be my vibe going forward, like adding case studies. I just like to research about it, and I also like adding the videos and all this other stuff. So tell me guys how y'all like that as well. If y'all want me to start adding that, like just case studies showing how this was done and that was done and what this means and what that means, if you guys would like me to include that more as well. So thank y'all, and this is the real time. See y'all later and have a great one. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe.